But I thought I'd better start, given that I'm neither an AI expert or an ethicist, with talking about myself and the job I do within Elsecier. So I joined Elsecier in 2016, and Elsecier is part of the RELX group. Prior to that, I'd had a lifetime sentence in EPSRC. I was there 26 years, and I've worked with various communities over that time. So I looked after computer science and the ICT program. I founded the engineering program in Elsecier, and I spent a great 5 years responsible for the life sciences interface program as the theme lead. I've also worked in the foresight program. And when I joined Elsecier, I came to Elsecier to be their UK point of contact with government and strategically research leaders and senior people in the UK research landscape. I think that's what I joined the company to do. As I've worked in the company, I've ended up doing all sorts of different things that I wasn't expecting at all. And partly that comes from my background in EPSRC, because I know the research community that can help us develop our thinking in products and services and technology. And so I've done more of that as time's unfolded. I'm part of a global team. We have members of my team right across the world, and together we try and make sense of the research landscape and think about how Elsecier can help the research landscape going forward. I really care about research and researchers, and I think that's really what's characterized my life. So I still am a bit surprised within Elsecier when I meet people that are developing technology who actually haven't been and sat next to a research to understand how a researcher's world might operate. So I do quite a lot of internal myth busting. I'm also a member of Keele University Council. I chair the LEP Innovation Board for Oxfordshire, and I was a member of the Royal Society Diversity Board, and I care passionately about diversity and opportunity. So RELX, our parent group, is quite a little known company. We're a top 20 UK-based company. We have offices in 40 countries and customers in 180 countries. We employ 30,000 people worldwide, 9,000 of whom are technologists, and we invest significantly in technology every year. We have 5,000 employees in the UK, but 94% of our revenue is generated outside the UK. So actually we're an export generating organisation. Given that most people are unaware of what RELX does, I've tried to explain it here. So Reed Exhibitions, the largest exhibition company in the world, is one of ours. Under legal, we have things like LexisNexis, which provides analytics to the legal profession. We do a lot of work in the insurance business, particularly in the US, but also elsewhere. And we have Elsecier, which is our scientific, technical and medical part of the organisation. And collectively, all of those activities are harmonised around providing information and analytics to professionals and business customers across industries. And I think very often when people think of Elsecier, that's not something that comes front and foremost to mind. So how do we do it? We use a lot of machine learning and data science, but we couple deep customer understanding with leading content and data sets, very sophisticated analytics, and then technology platforms. But one of our golden rules is whenever we apply an algorithm, it has to be explainable and reproducible. So we don't do black box neural nets or anything like that. So let me turn to Elsecier. We publish 17% of the world's research papers and articles, but we do so much more than that. And certainly I wasn't aware of everything that Elsecier did until I joined the company, and I'm still learning every day. So we do a lot of work linking content to analytics. So we have Scopus, Clinical Key, Reaxus, a tool for chemists, Cyval, which provides intelligent overlay for governments or for universities, Mendeley. a very big presence in online teaching of nursing and supporting nurses. We have 2 technology hubs, one in London and then later one in Amsterdam. And we have research collaborations in the UK with Oxford, UCL, Imperial, Lancaster, Cambridge and Southampton, as well as collaborations with other leading universities around the world. In Kidlington, we have 500 plus people, of which... Sorry, my phone is talking to me. Of which 50% are data scientists, and that proportion is growing year on year. And one of the things that limits our ability to move as rapidly as we want to is our trouble in recruiting data scientists and technologists. So let me give you an example of a database that we have and what we do with our database. So this is Scopus. I've picked it because it's a big one and most people in the academic world know about Scopus. So we collate data from over 5,000 publishers. So it's not an Elsevier only product by any means, although Elsevier sells it. We have of the order now of 1.7 billion cited references going back to the 70s. And that database is used to do all sorts of things. So to help people identify and analyse which journals they might submit to or read, to track people's research performance. But increasingly we're finding new ways to use Scopus or to integrate Scopus with other information sources. So this is an example, quite a recent example, but a very timely one. We use Scopus as a source regularly for finding experts, as does the academic and business world. But what we've done in the COVID situation now is pull all that information together. So there's a portal now where people that are looking for data sets or relevant research or collaborators can go and find the ecosystem engaged in COVID-19 research. We've also used machine learning very successfully recently in our publications business to make sure any papers that are submitted to us that are relevant to COVID-19, we can fast track their publication. So we're trying to get information that's curated and of high quality out around COVID as papers are submitted to us. So there are a couple of examples of how we use machine learning and artificial intelligence. So I wanted now to talk about what Elsevier knows about the world of research. This is global research. This is the trend in articles across all disciplines around the world. So, and by articles, I'm not just talking about journal articles, this is also conference proceedings. So you can see that between 2010 and 2019, China has just eclipsed the US for the percentage of global papers it produces. And you can see the other countries on the left-hand side with shares of between 8% and 5%. If you move to the right-hand side of this figure, you can see where the UK performs. So the UK, for the money that's invested in research, the UK is a very productive nation, producing just below 7% of papers. That reduction in the UK and Germany's and others' performance has been in part because of the growth of the Chinese growth in papers. But volume of papers isn't the only thing. This graph shows the article share on the x-axis by the field-weighted citation index, so a measure of research quality of all of the countries that we analysed for the government department BAYS for the comparative reports that Elsecier has published 3 times assessing the state of UK research performance. And you can see from this that the UK is, although a 7-8% share of publications, it's a very high quality research output. And just to set that in some context, while the UK's overall field-weighted citation index for this period was 1.57, the University of Oxford's was 2.31. and Oxford, in the same period, produced 130,000 research articles. So we have some really interesting insights into the world of research. This final picture in this diagram just shows the discipline spread of papers produced by different countries. So the UK is on the top left side, and you can see the UK is a very broad spectrum research nation. We have capabilities right across the patch. If you compare that to China, and I always think this is an interesting comparison, China produces comparatively little output in medicine, but has a really dominant output across the sort of engineering and physical sciences discipline base. You can see Germany for comparison, which is more active in research output on the harder end of the sciences, and then the US is there. And I want to come back to this when I look at AI and production of AI papers. So one of the other things we can do with the data we have is start to break down and provide some insights into not only the productivity of research, but some of the attributes of research communities. So earlier this year, we published our second global report looking at research through a lens of gender. And this diagram here shows the UK's research landscape by gender. So on the x-axis, you have the ratio of men to women in the research population. And there are two data points here: the analysis of the period of 1999 to 2003, where we've used a gender association methodology to work out from all of the papers in Scopus whether they're likely to be male or female. And then the second data point is 2014-2018. And around this, I've put a green ring to show computer science. So actually, given where I've come from, this is a bit of a sad picture, because in the UK, the progress we've made in engineering and physical sciences over that 20-year period has been limited, compared very much to some of the other disciplines you can see here. All of this data is available through the newly established ICSR, the International Centre for the Study of Research, and we invite universities or funders to come and partner with us on probing this data and seeing what interesting research questions some of this data can give them as a resource centre. So let me turn now to artificial intelligence. In 2018, we produced a global report looking at artificial intelligence and how knowledge was created, transferred, and used. And we particularly looked at the trends in China, the US, and Europe. And a big call out to Bernard Stahl, who helped us enormously publish this report. So around the world, we've seen that governments are committing increasingly to invest in AI and data science, really because they have focused on the potential of some of these technologies for transforming economies and societies. So the US, the UK, Germany, China. But actually, if you think about the world of AI, you need some sort of alignment or touch points between researchers, industry, media who are communicating to the general public, and teaching. So one of the things we did was analyse the keywords that were in corpuses related to each of these segments of society. And this overlapping Venn diagram tries to demonstrate this. So if we looked at the world of research and the keywords that came up most predominantly in Scopus, or if we looked at keywords that came up in media sightings around AI, or in teaching literature, or in industry and patents, there were only 6 keywords that came up commonly across the patch. And they were AI, deep learning, machine learning, neural nets, reinforcement learning, speech recognition. And so there seemed to be a lack of common consensus around AI and what AI was. And I think any AI researcher knows it when they see it, but there are heated debates. So actually within Elsecier, we used our labs to apply machine learning to how you should define AI. And on this rather pretty picture, you can see we ended up with 7 clusters when we looked at the corpuses for teaching, industry, research. Was somebody else? Oh, no, sorry, somebody's just come to my door. And all of this information is widely available, and you can probe it much more deeply by going to the Elsecier website, to the AI Resource Centre. But one of the things that came out quite clearly from this was the focus of research in China, in the US and Europe were quite different, with Europe having the broadest spectrum of research interests. There was a real dominance in China around machine vision. So if you look at the growth of papers from different countries in AI, using the AI corpus we defined from Scopus, you'll see that there's a growth in AI publications across the patch. China is growing remarkably, as is the United States, and India becomes the 3rd largest research nation for AI outputs. And then if you compare that by going back over a longer time period, you can see that between 98 and 2002, China only represented about 9% of the global papers in AI. And over that time, they've grown to representing, to 2017, 24% of papers. In comparison over that time, Europe in the purple colour has lost market share, and we're now producing about 30% of all AI papers. And the US has again lost market share slightly more significantly than Europe. And I think this is an interesting picture when you think going forward about the policy directions that different governments are setting and where they see their priorities within the themes of AI. I've probably baffled you with a whole host of data, but I just wanted to show you this data as well around the European landscape for AI researchers. So on the x-axis, you can see the number of papers that are produced by researchers in Europe. On the y-axis, you can see the field-weighted citation index of papers produced by researchers in Europe. And then we've subdivided the European research population into 4 groups. The sedentary population were the population that always resided in Europe and published papers with a European address between 1998 through to 2007. The transitory population came in and went, and came in and went. The migratory outflow is the population that have spent time in Europe and then have left Europe to go somewhere else. And the migratory inflow are those that have moved into Europe from other parts of the world. And from this diagram, when you look at the numbers in detail, you can see that the European landscape suffers from a slow but steady drain of researchers out to other places in the world. And that's a very different map from the Chinese map or the American map. But I think that for people thinking about the priorities for AI research and how Europe or the UK maintains a strong presence has some salutary warnings if people look at the data carefully. So now I want to move on to AI and ethics. And so what we have done here is use Bernard's work to look at the keywords that might be related to ethics in AI, and then taken our AI corpus and had a look at which of those papers within the corpus had keywords that related to ethics. And this is not an exact science, but it gives you a view of the world. So the first thing you can see from this is there's a year-on-year growth in the number of papers in AI publications, but there's also a growth year-on-year on the number of papers on AI and ethics. And the annual growth rate of AI publications, the global growth rate of publications year-on-year is about 4%. So there's a real uptick in AI publications and an even faster uptake in AI and ethics publications, albeit from a small base rate. And then if we look at the global distribution of those papers by authors' addresses, we have to be a little bit careful because of the low numbers of papers. But I think you can see from here the countries that are very active in AI research also have papers on AI and ethics. My concern looking at this graph, and I'd be interested in people's views, is the paucity across the global south and particularly Africa. Okay. And then the other thing we've done, having taken the AI and ethics corpus, is looked at the words, the key phrases amongst the topics that come up most frequently. So the larger the word and the more yellow the word, the more of a hot topic it is and the more volume of papers there are. So you can see that areas like military and warfare and logic programming are declining in this corpus of papers, but really we've got the ascent of robots in all of this. So I've given you a quick tour around Elsevier and our data and our view of the world. I've explained a little bit about Elsevier and how we fit into this bigger organisation of RELX. But if I come back to Orbit now, Bernard has been marvellous on helping us with our AI report. We are now publishing the Orbit OA journal, and I'm delighted about that. Marina recently did an interview for us on AI and ethics, and we will be surfacing that shortly. And I've joined the Orbit Advisory Board. And my question for all of you is, going forward, given your interests and the interests of Elsevier, how can we support each other? So in summary, Elsevier and RELX are very deeply involved in AI and data science, and not only involved in it, but concerned about how we use AI and data science. In Elsevier, we're using our data and our analytics to give insights to governments, universities, and research communities. I hope you might have found some of these insights interesting and maybe a little bit thought-provoking. We absolutely care about how we apply machine learning and analytics and how we use them daily. And probably a little known fact, we are probably, as RELX, arguably one of the largest UK-based data analytics companies. That's all I really wanted to say, apart from to thank you for the opportunity to present some data and tell you a little bit about Elsevier and RELX. But I'm more than happy to answer questions and see where the conversation goes. Thank you very much indeed.